Live. Hi everyone, just going to give you a couple minutes to come in so I get situated here. It is day 24 of Create with Gina. Let me just make sure. Okay. And what we're going to do today is create a home altar, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. I did make some notes. I woke up this morning and I've had a couple things planned, but like I mentioned in a previous video, sometimes you wake up and you have certain things planned out and then something comes to mind saying, no, that's not what you need to talk about today. Here's what you should talk about. So I've spent the last half an hour just making some notes and pulling out some things that I want to share with you. So go ahead and get started. Just set that right there. All right, so like I said, today we're going to talk about creating a home altar. And some of you might be saying, well, what's an altar? And I'm sure you've seen one. If you've been in church, there's an altar behind which the pastor usually stands and delivers his message. And there's probably an altar on which a specific Bible is kept, or maybe sacraments for the communion is kept. So I'm pretty sure that you've seen an altar before, and maybe some of you do have altars set up in your home already. So we're going to talk about that. An altar is basically a place where you put sacred objects that have meaning to you. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about how you can create a home altar for yourself and your family. And the reason I'm guessing why this came to me was because, you know, the times that we're going through right now, we're not able to go to the physical church building. We have other ways of worshiping at home, either by watching a previously recorded sermon or church service, or maybe our churches are having their own live stream and we're able to watch them through their live stream, and maybe we're able to visit other churches online. So where exactly in your home do you come together? And this was one of the things that was going through my mind was how do we make this particular time even more sacred than just throwing open a laptop and saying, okay, we're going to watch the church service. So I think that's where I was coming from when this popped into my head, but I'm going to give you a few other ways on how you can create something that's meaningful, a home altar that's meaningful for you. So home altars are not necessarily a tradition in the Western culture. I think they started to come about predominantly because of the introduction of meditation and yoga. So you might find home altars in a lot of homes of those who practice yoga and that sort of stuff. But nowadays you're seeing more and more people who are, you know, creating their home altars, not necessarily because of yoga or meditation traditions, but because they wanted to have a sacred space within their home. People are expressing a deep human longing or adoration of the divine, and that's another reason why having a sacred home altar that's another reason why people are creating it. I think today, with everything that is going on, we're finding people coming back to, I don't want to say a religion, but I think they're coming back to a respect of spirituality, and they're looking for something a little deeper, something to connect with. And I think this is probably the right time, or there's no better time to create something like this in your home if you don't already have something like this. If you've ever been in a Chinese restaurant, chances are you've seen altars, because they usually have a prosperity altar set up usually beside the cash register, and you probably don't even recognize that's what it is unless you're familiar with the particular items that are set up there. All right, so if you go into a Chinese restaurant, you'll probably see a huge golden frog, and at the base of the frog there are lots of different coins around, and coming out of the frog's mouth there's usually another coin, and that's just a symbol of financial prosperity for them. You'll probably also see a huge tank of koi or other goldfish, or maybe it's just a large open fountain with maybe fish at the bottom, then there are coins, and coins usually thrown in there. That's another form of an altar, having the water. And then in another area you might see a large Buddha reclining with the giant tummy that you can go and rub. And in another area you might see pictures of people you may not necessarily know whether they're dead or alive, but chances are that's their ancestral altar. So you'll find a lot of different examples of altars if you go into a Chinese restaurant. And if you've ever been inside of a Japanese home, you certainly see different altars set up there for their ancestors as well. So those are just a couple examples of where you would see altars. So there can be lots of different types. It could be nature inspired. You could have a garden altar. You could have a religious inspired altar, like I mentioned, a Zen inspired altar. It could be a Native American inspired altar, and there's quite a few of those. What I do is I post some images below to give you kind of examples of what they could look like. There could be a love altar, could be universal love, or maybe you're trying to call in love for yourself. So it could be a love altar, prosperity altar, like I mentioned. And they could also, there are lots of different ways that you can create it, lots of different spaces, and we'll talk about the space. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you a couple things that I usually have on my altar. And I was in the process of kind of cleaning it today. I decided, well, since I'm going to talk about this, I might as well just go ahead and clean up the area. So I'm going to share with you a couple things that I have on my altar, my home altar. And I'm speaking from a Christian perspective because that is my background, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's what you have to do. I'm going to share some things that I have, and then I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how you can create your personally inspired one. Okay, so I don't know where to start. One of the things that I always have is, let me find it, is a cross. And this is a cast iron one. It's pretty heavy. So I always have a cross, whether it's here or I've got another one. Let me show you. There's also one. This is also a cross, but it has, let me see if I can lift it. It has a little tea light candle inside. So whenever it's lit, it shines against the glass here. So I always have a symbol of my particular religious, affiliation. So that's the cross. Let me set those down. Another example of my particular religious background is an image of Jesus. So I always have an image of Jesus there. This happens to be a candle. You can have a picture. You can have a sculpture. I have the cross and then the candle with the image of Jesus on there. I also have other candles. This happens to be a selenite heart. The particular crystal that you're looking at here is selenite, and that's considered to be white light or divine light, which is another representation of Jesus. And then inside there's another tea light candle. The heart is representative of love, so that's another way that I pull in that particular meaning for me. I always have different sound because I work with sound a lot for healing therapy. So this is this is a Tibetan singing bowl, So then I have the two here, and all I do, I can play it for a couple seconds so you hear it, is actually, let me hit it again. And I'm not playing it really loud right now, but sometimes I sit and I just meditate with this. So I have a lot of sound represented there. That is one, and then I have another one here, which is in the shape of an egg. I actually created this last week, and inside are just some carnelian chips, and it's a simple rattle. I also have sound represented here. This is a coconut shell, and this was one that was made back home. I'm from Grand Cayman, so this one is actually made from back home, and it has a stingray on there. And this, each time I pick it up, it reminds me of my baby sister who passed away, because this was a place that we always went to whenever we got together with my kids. So each time I pick this up, it's a reminder now, because she passed away back in January. So it's now a reminder of her. It not only produces sound, but it now is attached to a memory that I have of my baby sister. So there's that one. And then I also have sound represented in this rain stick, which my daughter made. So each time I use this, I also remember that my daughter is the one who created this. I think she was around 11, and she's now 23. So time's passed, but I still have it, and it's just a simple rain stick, and inside there's rice. But it did take, she really spent a lot of time creating it, and it does mean a lot to me. So I have sound represented on my altar in that way. The other thing that I do have there is incense. I always have incense. This is an incense burner. The incense is placed in there. It's closed, and then the smoke comes here. And the incense that I have right here is rose, which is a very high vibrating incense. And you know that rose is a representation of love, universal love, as well as the romantic love, right? So I have incense on there. I also keep different perfumes on my particular home altar. This is one that was created from a recipe that I found in the Bible. So I always anoint with this before I start any kind of meditation or before praying, that sort of thing. So I always keep perfume on my altar. There's another one that was just put on my altar simply because this was made on Easter Sunday. And it has the energy of course, Easter Sunday, and a lot of the flowers that were chosen were chosen because of what they represent for Easter. Is another way that I draw in the divine, and had some technical issues, so I think we're back. So the color is also another way that I bring in the divine energy, because the color purple is a representation of Jesus, and you know, his supremacy, and also representation of his death and resurrection. So it was created in a purple bottle. So that's another item that's on my altar. Let me see, what am I missing? The another item that I have there is, you're probably familiar with this. Let me pull out some notes. This is a sand dollar, and this is always on my altar. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with the meaning. Let me pull it a little bit closer, and I'm going to tell you exactly what it means, so you'll see. Right in the middle, if you can see, right in the center, there's a star, and that star is meant to be the Star of Bethlehem. And the outline is supposed to be the Easter lily right around. So there's a star, and then right around is the representation of the Easter lily. Normally there would be about 5 holes. So you have 1, 2, and then 3, 4 5, which would represent the 5 sacred wounds that Jesus received. On the back, that's a representation of the poinsettia, which is the Christmas flower. And if you broke this open, which I won't, I've had this for years, so I won't break it open, but if you've ever seen one broken open, inside there are 5 doves. There's always 5 doves whenever you break open a sand dollar. So this is always on my altar as well. Also on my altar, you'll find another representation of sound. This is a bell, and it has such a pretty sound. So whenever I start, just before I do meditation, I always ring the bell. And I think it's because, number one, it clears the energy, and number two, it's kind of it reminds me of, you know, when church is about to start, they go and they ring the bell. I don't know if they do that anymore actually, but let me just hold this so it doesn't ring. When I was growing up in Jamaica, you always knew church was about to start when the bell was ringing. And even in Grand Cayman, I can still remember the church bell being rung whenever church was about to begin. So there are 2 meanings behind why I have the bell on my altar. One is number one, I use it to clear the energy before I actually start to meditate or pray, and then it's just a reminder of, you know, the church starting by them ringing the bell. So I always have a bell sitting on my altar. And I used to have another one, but then I found this one, and oddly enough, I found this at a garage sale. And the minute that I rang it, it's such a pretty sound, and I couldn't believe that it was there. I think I got it for maybe 99 cents, and it is lead crystal. So it was a great find. So let me set that down. I also keep a smudge fan on my altar. This is more of a Native American tradition, but it's coming into every, lots of different cultures. So this is one that I actually made myself from a piece of licorice root. That's the handle. And then there's copper crystals on here, another couple crystals here, and different feathers. And there's always a peacock feather, because for me, I'll show you another one. Peacock feather for me is like a representation of beauty, but also transformation. So you'll always see a smudge fan and a peacock feather. This small item is always on my altar, and it's a purple butterfly, and it represents the lupus community that I'm connected to so much. The butterfly is the symbol. The purple butterfly is a symbol for lupus awareness. So you always see me either wearing this because it's a brooch. There's a pin on the back, or it sits on my altar as a reminder to always pray for those who are battling lupus, or those who have passed on from lupus, remembering their families, that sort of thing. So this little butterfly, it was actually given to me by a former student who's now, I think, probably graduating from college as we speak. This was given to me by one of my students, and I don't think she knew about the butterfly, but I don't think she really knew about the color. And I think she might have done some research. So she gave this to me at Christmas, and I'm telling you, every time I look at this, I remember her. But then I also, it's a constant reminder that there are thousands out there who are fighting this disease called lupus. So just a reminder to always pray for them, keep connected with them. You'll always see some representation of the lotus flower on my altar, and this is actually an essential oil diffuser. I just put a couple drops here, and then it just gradually gives off the scent of the essential oil. But the lotus flower means a lot to me. If you've been on my lupus page for a while, you'll know that I'm very connected to this, simply because of the story of the lotus flower and the way that it pushes itself through the mud, really muddy beginnings and still comes out perfectly clean when it opens. So you'll hear me say, be like the lotus, rise above the mud. And that's why I always keep a lotus flower on my altar, because it represents the challenges that I've gone through lupus for many years, and having the things that I did, the challenges I faced in healing my body from lupus. And that's a whole other video right there, but we won't go into that right now. So you'll also find on my altar a few different crystals. These are 3 of them. Oh, I forgot to bring one. I do have amethyst that always sits on my altar. I am in the process of collecting the 12 that were dictated by God in the Bible to Aaron to have on his altar, and I have quite a few of them, but I wanted to share these particular ones with you. There's rose quartz, which basically stands for universal love, so I keep that one on there. This one is carnelian, which is kind of like the if we could have caffeine in the crystal world, this would be it. So the carnelian is basically like my, get your act together, get going kind of crystal. So whenever I see this, it's a reminder, you have work to do, so let's get things done. This is a piece of raw green aventurine. So this is considered to be a prosperity stone. So this always sits on my altar as well. So there are these 3, but you always find a nice chunk of amethyst, which stays beside my bed, because amethyst also helps me to sleep, but it's considered to be a representation of the divine as well. So you'll find those. Let me share one more thing. In here is actually a letter that I wrote of different things that I'm working on and hope to achieve by the end of 2020. So you'll see that on that date is marked December 12th. I wrote it on December 12th, 1919. So you'll see the date a year later. And in here, this was actually done last week during the full moon, which was called an egg moon. So in here are a few things that I'm working on that I hope to hatch by the end of 2020. So no, I can't see, and chances are I don't remember exactly what I wrote in here, but I am working with a business coach who knows, and we'll see exactly what happens by the end of 2020. So these are several intentions that I've written that I hope to see come to fruition at the end of 2020. Now, writing it in here doesn't necessarily mean it's going to come true. I actually have to put the work into it. So that is that's why I do have a business coach that I'm working with, who I've explained, these are the things that I want to have achieved by the end of 2020. So you'll always see a representation of my intentions, or kind of like a vision board, but it's not something that you can see physically. Let me see, am I missing anything? Oh, 3 things. I always have salt. This is pink salt. Let me see if I can just grab some. It's a huge container, but this is pink salt, and I always have salt on my altar because salt is said to be very healing and a great thing to clear the energy. I always take a salt bath at the end of the day, just to kind of, I don't know if people take Epsom salt baths, that's another way of kind of clearing the energy. You get a lot of healing benefits from Epsom salt as well, but salt is something that I always keep on my altar. Another thing that I always keep on my altar or near to my altar, because this is used so often, this is my cleaning spray or my clearing spray or the antibacterial spray. This is a workhorse basically. So this travels with me whenever, especially now, whenever we go grocery shopping. I take it, I spray down the cart, I wipe down the cart with it, I spray my entire body before I go out. So and it does have a couple a couple crystals in here. This is black tourmaline, which is said to be a very protective stone. But this is used to spray the doorknobs, to spray down the table, to clean the bathrooms. It's used for a lot of different things. So this spray is always on the altar or around, very near, or traveling with me somewhere. Another thing that I did forget to mention was a cloth. Now this is the one that I have on mine, and you can see again the butterflies, because the butterflies represent the lupus community, and it also represents a particular class that I'm doing called Soul Shift, but the butterfly is the symbol in there as well. So having an altar cloth is a good idea as well. You don't have to have one, but if you do have a piece of cloth that's really pretty and you want to put that down, then you can certainly use that, or you can just use the plain wood, or whatever area you're going to be placing it in. All right, so that was a lot. I know you don't necessarily have to use all these items, so I'm going to explain now. Let me move those notes away. How do you come up with your particular ones? Well, you can get ideas from what I just shared with you, and then just basically go through and say, okay, what's important to me? You may not necessarily be a Christian. You may be a Buddhist, so you may have a Buddha, or things that represent Buddha. It might be a photograph. So you might have certain colors that you're particularly connected with. And I do apologize for the noise downstairs. The neighbors are basically having a huge party. You wouldn't believe that that we were in the middle of a quarantine because of the amount of people that are actually downstairs in a group. But I digress. So there could be statues representing your particular divine being. You could have certain colors, like I mentioned. Purple was one of mine. Different materials, maybe something from the ocean. I have the sand dollar that represents a lot more than just the ocean. But you could have maybe some seashells. You could have a container of sand, maybe things that you're connected with. You could have your Bible, and maybe you have your Bible open to a particular passage. Mine would be Psalms 46. God is my refuge and strength. That particular passage has gotten me through a lot. So if you have a Bible or another sacred book that you may want to have opened on your altar, you could certainly have those as well. There are no particular rules as far as creating a home altar. There really is only one, and that it should represent you. It has to be something that you're going to feel connected with, that your family is going to be connected with. Because having a home altar basically is, to me, there are four things. One is to honor divine energy, honor God, right? Number two is to give thanks. Number three, to give offerings. Number four, to ask for protection and blessings. So that's pretty much what a home altar is for. So the only rule is that it has to be something that represents you. You may choose to use some of the items that I have. You may want to do your own research and find things that you might like, or just go throughout your home. You may already have so many things that you can actually pull together and create a home altar for yourself. Right now you may have a picture of Jesus hanging up somewhere that you say, oh, maybe that's the perfect spot that we could create a home altar. So underneath it, you may want to pull in a couple candles. You may want to put down a nice piece of cloth, have your Bible in that area. What is the area going to represent for you? Maybe it's going to be the spot where you and your family meet for church service every Sunday or every Wednesday, whenever you all have service that is being live streamed. Maybe it's the area for you all to come and connect as a family at the end of the day, or for the church service. But it's going to be a sacred spot for you. It's not going to be, you don't want it to be in an area that constantly has a ton of traffic coming throughout it. You want it to be in a sacred spot, a spot where when you gather there, that it's going to be a special time. it's going to be a sacred time because you're connecting with the divine when you meet in that particular spot, right? So when you think of divine energy, what comes to mind? What is important to your family? And I'm throwing out some questions that I wrote down as I was making some notes. What particular colors come to mind? What particular images or symbols might come to mind for you and your family? You're going to find these images that speak to you. The images could be about love. The images could be about devotion. Could be about healing. That's huge these days. Could be about protection, certainly. Could be about resilience and how we've managed to bounce back from everything that we're dealing with right now. It could be any other feeling that you might associate with God or a particular or divine energy, right? Got that. So you want to make the altar yours, so you're going to choose items that resonate with you. You're going to have items that have personal meaning to you, personal meanings to your family, and these are going to be items that have some personal connection to you and your family. So think of a particular image that's going to be the center of or the focal point of your altar, and then place that, and then you're going to start to place your other items around it. It doesn't have to be a lot of items. If you only have a candle and a picture of Jesus, or a candle and a picture of Buddha, whatever your particular divine being is, that's a great way to start. And then maybe over time you can start to put together other items on your altar. So it does not have to be as many items as I've shared with you. I didn't start with everything here. I gradually added, and you won't find everything in one particular spot. I actually have, your entire room could become your altar if you wanted to. I do have certain things along the windowsill, and then I have one focal altar, if you want to call it that. So think of one particular thing that you want to have as your focal point. Mine would be the candle with Jesus. The two, let me find it. These would be my focal points, and then everything else gets built around that. Okay? But most altars would have something to represent the divine being, candles, incense. And I'm going to talk about incense for a little bit, because I think when people think of incense, another image kind of pops into mind. And I'm not sure if you're a Catholic. If you go into a Catholic, right before Mass starts, you'll see in some Catholic churches anyway, I know I've seen it, you'll see where the minister, the priest is burning incense, and typically it's frankincense, or maybe it's some other incense that they're burning, but they're swinging it throughout the church, right? And it's basically to clear the energy, to clear the negative energy that might be in there. And it's the same thing about burning incense in your home, or burning incense on your home altar. It's not meant to be a negative connotation. It's not supposed to whip up, these images of woman with pointy hat sitting in front of a cauldron, not those type of things at all. People have been burning incense in churches, and even in the Bible, you can read about the burning of incense and the reasons behind it. So typically there you'll find candles, a representation of the divine being. In my case, it's going to be Jesus, and you'll find incense, and in a lot of if you go online, you'll also see that there are a lot of people who use crystals on their altars as well. Oh, another thing I forgot to mention was some kind of plant. I have a lot of different plants. I do have a lucky bamboo, which happens to be sitting right in front of me. I also have a plant called money tree, but you do want to have, maybe you want to have some plants on your altar. You can even create an altar in your garden. I keep seeing something on my face. You can even create an altar in your garden. I know a lot of people who have maybe a statue of Jesus, maybe a statue of Mary, and different angels, and they're in between all of the different plants. So your altar can be created in a lot of different areas. Let me make sure I'm telling you everything. So once you find your different items, once you've located the area where you want it to be, just go ahead and give it a quick smudge. Smudge is basically what we call burning incense. Burning, maybe you want to burn some sage. Maybe you want to burn some Palo Santo. And I thought I had a piece here. Palo Santo is basically holy wood. So you if you don't have sage or Palo Santo, sometimes I just use my spray and I just spray the entire area, and I consider that to be smudged. So whatever kind of cleaning product that you might have, or maybe you just want to whisper a prayer, and that will clear the energy from your space. Prayer is a powerful thing. It really is. And then once you've cleared your space and you've started to put down your particular center, your focal area, the focal point, then you can start to add in your other items around it as well. So the other thing is, what is your intention for that particular altar? Maybe it could be, like I mentioned before, it could be the meeting place for you and your family to come whenever you have service on a Sunday or on a Wednesday. I don't know how many times your church might meet during the week. Right now, mine actually meets on Sunday, and then we have a midweek for the Wednesday. So maybe you want it to be like a meeting place for you and your family. You know that that's the area where you go to for church, and that area is meant to be a very, very sacred space for you. Maybe it's going to be a meditation space for you, and maybe for the rest of the family as well. So set a particular intention for that area. Start to place your items. Trust your intuition. There's no right or wrong way of placing these things. It just has to be things that are connected to you and your family and mean something to you and your family. Give your altar attention. Don't just set it and forget about it. Go back, clean it up nicely. If you keep fresh flowers on there, when they start to wilt, take the flowers off, put a new set of flowers on there. But your altar is meant to be a working place for you. Okay, that's why I was talking about what's your intention for this particular altar. So you might want to light a candle on a daily basis there as well, and maybe burn some incense as well. And these are not, you do want to, if you're using it just for a meeting place for church, then in between those times you might want to just go there and just whisper a simple prayer, light the candle, burn some incense, that sort of thing. But don't just set it and forget it, right? Your altar is going to change over time. You won't have the same items on there all the time. You might keep adding to it, or you might decide, okay, I want to add something else. Let me go and remove this. So it's going to change over a period of time. You might also want to create another altar in another location. Like I mentioned before, you might want one to be in your garden. You might want one to be on your windowsill. And there's something else I wanted to show. I don't have that, but I will certainly put it in the comments below. You might also want to create something very, very simple inside of a box that you can take with you wherever you go. Or you may just want something very simple to place in a small location that, you don't want something as big as your original one, but maybe you just want something that you can carry with you. Maybe you're going to a park somewhere and you just want something in a little box. And I'm going to take a picture of one that I have and post for you, just so you can have an idea. So the sky is the limit on this. Like I said, there's no right way, there's no wrong way. The only rule is it has to be something that's meaningful to you and your family. Express your creativity and your love for the divine simply by creating this home altar. But I do want to say this. Your altar is a representation, right? It's going to be a meeting place for you and your family. But remember that every spot, every step, and every moment is sacred. Not just that altar, right? It's like going to church, but this is going to be a reminder whenever you get before it, it's going to be a reminder you need to slow down and and be present. If And that's one of the things I've noticed, having a little altar set up each time I see it, or each time I come before it, it's a reminder. Okay, either I stop and just whisper a little prayer and I go on with my day, or maybe right then I feel the need to really just stop and meditate for a few moments, maybe for 10-15 minutes, and then get up and just go about my day. But it really just kind of helps to pull me back to the present, because times can get crazy, your day can get crazy. So maybe this will be something that will just kind of encourage us to really get present and remember that the dishes in the sink, yes, they need to be washed, but maybe your child is tugging at you to come and play a board game. Go ahead and play the board game. Maybe it'll be a time for you and your child to say, okay, let's just meditate for 5 minutes. It's a great opportunity, actually, to teach your child how to pray. Having a space that you consider sacred for your family, and that will be a spot where your child can say, okay, I can go there and I can kind of just release all of the frustration I might be feeling. I can go there and I can pray. And this would be a great way for you to connect with the kids and teach the kids about sacred spaces and keeping certain parts of the home holy. Now, and I could have spent hours talking about this, talking about sacred spaces, talking about creating altars and that sort of thing. But I think that's a rabbit hole that you can probably go down yourself simply by doing a lot of research. But the idea behind creating your home altar right now is just to create something that is going to be meaningful to you, meaningful to your family. And if you do create one, I would love to see it. I would love to see the items that you've chosen. I know it's probably going to take you a little bit of time, so just go ahead and take your time, because it's not something that you want to rush. You do want to spend your time collecting the items that are going to be present on your particular altar. So thank you for sharing this time with me. And like I said, if you do create a home altar, I would love to see your depiction of it. Simply take a picture and share it with us in the comments below. If you're looking for any of the previous videos, like I said, today was day 24. Just simply type in #CreateWithGina and it will pull up all of the previous episodes as well. And if you do any of those, again, just simply share with us by taking a picture and posting them in the comments below. I hope you've enjoyed today. I know this is not something that I would typically share about, that I typically talk about, but just something said to me this morning, it's time. I'm different, and I've shared a few things that I've worked with over the years that actually, and some of them you've seen here that actually helped me in my healing journey as far as lupus is concerned. Sound therapy was a huge one. Meditation was another one. So these are just a couple things that were also represented on my particular home altar. And once I finish putting all of mine back, I'll also take a picture of it and I will share with you in the comments below. All right, thank you again for being here with me and for spending this time with me. I do appreciate you being here, and I will see you again tomorrow with, wow, day 25 of Create with Gina. Thank you.